Okay, hello and welcome. I'm going to review seasons 3 and 4 of Game of Thrones. One's rated MA, one's rated R. They're both extremely violent. I just started watching. I was going to review season 3 or give, it's kind of just a way to get things off my chest. But then I started season 4 and now I finished it. So I thought I'd combine them. Yeah, I thought season 3 was not as good. I felt parts of the story started to drag a bit and they kind of the best way to describe it, it's a bit similar to Breaking Bad. I don't really like that show. I've only seen 1.5 seasons of it, and what I felt like was the first episode of Breaking Bad is a really good concept for a movie or a story. This chemistry teacher, something happens and he's just kind of like, you know what, it's my life, I'm going to do. It reminds me of like American Beauty or something, just sort of a midlife crisis taking control of your life for once. There's a movie called Ikiru, which means to live in Japanese, directed by Akira Kurosawa. It's just a similar concept, but it feels like every episode after that is kind of like not following through. It goes back and forth, and that's what I feel like starts to happen with Game of Thrones season 3. Like we've already season 1, you establish the world, the Starks, the Lannisters, and you end up sort of hating certain people, and there's a big twist when Ned Stark gets killed. Then season 2, you've got the world expands, and you've got Stannis and Renly, and I forget all the others. Daenerys is doing her thing, and there's all these different groups. Robb Stark, the King of the North, and it's all building up, and then the big battle at King's Landing. It's kind of epic and big, and then season 3 just seems to continue. Everything is just kind of like, okay, Stannis, we see so much of him planning and talking to this. I call her the Scarlet Witch, whatever, because she's red. The Red Witch lady. He just seems to be planning stuff. Robb Stark's the King of the North, and like I don't know what he's doing. He's sort of having battles along the way. It's all good, but it just feels like every episode's like, okay, when are we gonna have? If it takes too long, like how many people are gonna betray Robb Stark or betray these other characters and become new enemies, and how many old enemies are gonna end up in a situation where they're now good, like or like not the biggest problem. Like the whole thing is we want Joffrey to get killed by Robb Stark, or we want some confrontation. We want revenge. And the comparison I would again give is like the Shawshank Redemption or The Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins. Those are all movies where the character, whether it's Batman or someone else, is like dragged through the mud, bad things happen, but then they come back, or at least they're trying to. And within a movie, we get the bad things and then the struggle and then the resolution at the end, or some kind of chance to do that within 2 hours or so. Kill Bill, that's 2 movies, so I guess about 4 hours. But then this is like 2 seasons worth of like the King of the North, and like there's no satisfaction of it leading somewhere. So what happens to Robb Stark and Catelyn Stark was completely shocking. I did not see it coming at all, and it's effective. That's one of Game of Thrones' strengths, and I think a lot of HBO shows just seem really good at not compromising whatsoever. There's no gratuitous violence, in my opinion. It's all necessary or relevant, and it's given. There's almost this calculated approach that I think is good. If you're arguing or discussing something, it's good if you can sort of be unemotional in terms of you don't want that to cloud the way you do things, and in that sense, it's also good to film. Whether it's trying to think all kinds of scenes, whether it's just two people talking, or if someone's naked, or if there's something sexual going on, or some violence or something threatening. If you can just film it and just capture it, and that's it, and you just you sort of show images. It doesn't back away from things, it doesn't shy away. It shows you the goriest, most explicit things, and then moves on. It doesn't drag on them. It doesn't spend forever. It just gives you that image and then moves on. And so you see so many things in this show. It's crazy. Yeah, and it affects me in ways that I don't think anything else has ever affected me. Like just feeling sick in my stomach. Like when she gets what they do to the woman with the babies, with the baby. Oh my God, his Robb Stark's pregnant wife. And then they shoot him, and I was like, oh my God, what? And Arya was about to get there to see them again. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I give it full credit for shock and for following through. And just the the way it plays out is really well done. Like where Caitlin is like says, threatens. She doesn't seem like a mean spirited or violent person, but she's willing to kill this woman, innocent woman, presumably just to help Robb get out. And she makes a threat, and the guy's like, just kill her. I'll get another wife. And then they kill Robb Stark, and then I thought she'd just let the woman go and kill herself, or just like look glum, but she follows through. She kills her. I guess you have to. It's like all she's got. It's like a split-second decision of just do it, and then she gets killed. It's just. I remember the credits for that episode. It's the second last episode of season 3. It was completely silent, and it was very effective. But here's the thing: if it works as shock, but long term, like to me, it ruins a lot of the tension. All this build up of the King of the North and this threat from the North, people rallying together to try and get revenge for, killing Ned Stark, and, King Joffrey's not the real king because of the Lannisters, the incest and all that. But then it fizzles. Now it's gone. And I don't know. I just think sometimes the show has too much betrayal and people playing different sides of things, and not enough actual confrontations and consequences. Like, I'm worried now that Daenerys, after all the stuff with her, what's going on? She's just got to get betrayed and killed, and her 3 dragons killed or stolen or something, So anyway, I'll go through lots of different things. Let's go to Daenerys. So I feel like this is a slight weakness, that she just seems kind of separate from the whole rest of the story. There's a little bit of reference to her of like, what about this lady who has 3 dragons over in the east? And some people are like, oh, don't worry, and others are like, it's a big threat, we've got to do something soon. But it feels a bit too repetitive to me. She goes to some land, she threatens them, or she says, I've got dragons, and they're kind of douches, and they're men, and they look down on her because she's a woman. And then she ends up, she says Dracarys, and they get fired. Like, some of that stuff's cool, but it happens like 4 or 5 times. And then she goes in and frees all the slaves, and then they all like cheering. And she's like, yeah. And then a dragon flies over, and it's like the end of the episode. And it's like, it happens like 4 times, I swear. So it's like, we don't need to see that multiple times is the issue. And this is what I mean with, like Breaking Bad, for instance. It's like he keeps deciding, oh, I'm going to make meth, I'm gonna sell it. That's it. I'm doing it. I'm going all the way in. And then the next episode is like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Or no, this is not right. Like, I don't know. It keeps changing, and it's like, just follow through. Just give us what we want. Go to that. So that's the thing. Like, the dragons don't really do anything. We just get shots of them every now and then, and they're a threat in the future, and they do 1 or 2 little things, but I just feel like we don't need to see every single step of the growth. Anyway, I don't think Emilia Clarke's a great actor. I'm not trying to be negative. I just and some of her decisions, Daenerys, I don't completely like. She seems a bit too bossy, and I mean, it is interesting though. She wants to get rid of slavery. That's cool, but then she doesn't think in depth about what to replace it with, or what structure to put in place. And then there's these uprisings as she leaves the areas. It's kind of interesting. It reminds me of what Robb Stark's wife said to him. She said, when you wanted to kill Joffrey, right? Let's say you kill him, then what? Are you going to be king? He's like, well, I don't want to be king. And she's like, who's going to be king? It's an interesting problem. I think it happened with the Second Iraq War, based on my understanding. There's a documentary called No End in Sight that I thought was excellent, but I'm very skeptical about documentaries. How do you know how accurate they are, or if they're biased, if they're only showing you one side of the story? But it seemed very informative, and it seemed to imply the invasion of Iraq was relatively successful, but there was no solid long-term plan of occupying Iraq, and some very bad decisions were made, and that was the problem. And that seems to be the harder part of this sort of conquering. Taking over is not that hard necessarily, but then establishing something that's going to be stable and work, and which is better than what was already there, is not obvious. It's also an interesting question. Like, Joffrey's terrible. He's a very cruel doesn't seem that smart a person, but yeah, mainly just cruel and mean and evil and selfish. But like, what were the policies that existed under him? You can have someone who's benevolent, but whose ideas are terrible. Like, based on what I understand about Barack Obama, he seems like a really cool person, speaks really well, but from what I've learnt of a lot of the policies that he was encouraging, I think they were very harmful. And I think it's an interesting thing to ponder. I'm not saying bad people are good, but just it's you always have to compare things to the alternatives. So getting rid of Joffrey, then who's going to be the new king? I did like that army that Daenerys meets, or the Unsullied, or whatever they're called. I think he like slices their nipple off to prove like that. Like, I don't care who you are, you can't do that. How much you've been trained, like they'd go, "Oh my God, what the?" Or they'd pull away. They'd be like, "Dude, come on, I'm gonna fight for you. Just relax. You don't need to do that." I think it's a huge weakness if you have an army so disciplined that there's no feeling that they'll kill themselves. If you say there's a very good reason for the fear of death and for the for gut reactions to things. For you need that feedback cycle. You need that common sense. In Ender's Game, the series, and Ender's Shadow, another book, there's a character Ender and a character Bean, and they really recognize that it's important for. I feel like this is true in life as well. Soldiers should understand the reasons for instructions given to them and should be able to make adjustments based on the situation, on new information. Otherwise, they're just going to blindly follow some instruction, and even if it doesn't make any sense. That's why that kind of an army is not going to be very good, because they just on principle. I mean, I know she kind of frees them and maybe that changes things, but that's why I felt those qualities are not an impressive thing. They're not a good thing to have, that they just will die or just do anything. They need to think for themselves and have common sense, not to the point of disagreeing with instructions, but sort of saying, well, trying to understand them. It's so important for people to understand rules. That's what I think happens in society a lot of the time. There'll be a rule, people forget why the rule exists, and then they just enforce the rule. It'd be like, let's say there's a door for like some concert area, and it's a fire exit, and someone tells this security guard, you have to keep it clear, no one can be near this door, and he's like, okay, got it. And then a fire happens and everyone's rushing towards the doors, and he's like, hey, you need to clear there. And it's like he doesn't understand the reason. It's so important to understand why it needs to be kept clear, and then in certain circumstances the rules may be different. Oh, in that circumstance, open the door and get people to go through, let them right through. There's a lot of other things I wanted to talk about. The music. I think the music, I might have mentioned this before, the main theme's alright, but there seems to be this thing these days, like I don't think anyone can name or hum or sing the Captain America theme song or Iron Man, Avengers maybe. I think they do have a recognizable theme. But a lot of these new superheroes and movies, I can't sing the theme to most of those movies, but any classic like Steven Spielberg movie with John Williams music, I can hum the theme. And for example, in Star Wars, a lot of the characters and places have their own themes, and I think that's awesome. A movie like Return to Oz, there's a theme from most of the main characters. Now you've got a show like Game of Thrones with so many interesting characters and places and types of people. Like, some are really evil and calculating, some are sort of just manipulative and just sort of listening and playing and saying things. Like Varys and Baelish, they seem to not directly get involved, but often hear things and say little things to help themselves. And then you've got people who are quite brave and heroic, or people who are kind of flawed but just finding their path or whatever. There's so much potential. You could have a theme for a lot of the main characters or houses, but there isn't one. There's a 4-note motif that's associated with that Scarlet Witch or with Stannis. It's something like boom, 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 boom. But it's got a cool sound to it. It's recognizable. I like it, but it's also just 4 notes. It's like they're not going to develop it anymore. There's a couple others. I thought the music improved in season 4. I thought there was some more. There were a couple of parts where I actually thought, wow, that was actually really good. Like I call it incidental music, when it's not a specific theme, but just in that scene, there's some interesting music that just brings it out a bit more. And I just think a lot of the music's passable, but it's it's better than mediocre, but not a lot better, in my opinion. And yeah, like I mean, if you look at Star Wars, it has a main theme, but you don't just constantly hear the main theme. But Game of Thrones is constantly dun 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 dun. I like the theme. Don't get me wrong. Even hearing it this many times, I still like it. It's good. It's good music, but it's one thing you need like 10 or 20 by this point. I did like right at the end of season 4, which I just saw, there was like a choir singing it. I thought that was pretty cool. And some of the music for the battle scenes also in towards the end of season 4 was good. Alright, let's see, what else? I just got to keep jumping around. There's so many things to talk about. Theon Greyjoy, what happens to him? It had already started in season 2, but yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, well, I feel awful for like the situation with his dad and his sister. Like, he doesn't get any credit. He doesn't seem to be recognized. But then what happens to him here, where he gets kind of kidnapped and then tortured, and just the details of what happens to him, it's awful. And the way he changes, I actually think the acting is really good, because we've seen at least 3 sort of very different characters. Like at the start, we see this just sort of, he didn't even seem that significant. Like a main character that much, but just kind of a good, decent person. Another one of the Stark brothers. I think maybe I found him a little annoying, but and then we see just this kind of more evil one. Although you can tell he's still like a kid. He's just trying to get credit, and he's not evil, but he feels he has to follow through. And it's like, yeah, he's becoming this kind of villain, following through, like taking Winterfell and trying to prove himself, and then cutting off someone's head that had looked after him for a long time, or that sort of thing. But yeah, now he's getting tortured, then turns into Reek, and you just see in his eyes, and just the hopelessness. It's awful. It's really disturbing and scary, and I feel awful for him. And yeah, I just think the acting is really effective, and I like that part of the story. Although again, it feels like it drags. Like you could get through the same stuff a bit quicker, I think. This is another thing where I think the casting is really good. That guy, Ramsay Bolton or Ramsay Snow, his eyes, and he's just, how evil he is, and the way he says things is extremely disturbing. And it makes me think, do I know him from something? He seems famous, but I look him up, I don't think he's in many other things. That's what happens when you cast the right people for the right role. Let them do a really good job, and just they become memorable. Yeah, let's move on. Tyrion Lannister. He's probably one of my favorite characters, played by Peter Dinklage or whatever. I think he's a really good actor. That's the thing with a lot of it. I think the acting is anywhere from good to like all right. I don't think any of it's bad, but I still think Emilia Clarke's maybe one of the weaker ones, but in my opinion. But I think he's really, really good. And I really like his character. Very human, kind of flawed, but caring and decent. And that's one of my favorite kinds of people and characters, is people who acknowledge who they are. You know, he has flaws, but his flaws are, you know, he maybe drinks too much, or he's a womanizer, or that he's not particularly talented at certain things, but, you know, at least he'll generally be upfront with you, tell you the truth. He'll generally try to do the right thing and be good. You know, like he's a decent person. Whereas you got other people who are conniving and evil, like Cersei, and I don't know, some of the others. What happens with Shay though? I didn't like Shay at all. There were times where I understand they fell in love and they love each other. He certainly loves her, but then the way she's so pouty and needy, like later on when he's forced to marry Sansa, and you really sense he doesn't want to be in that situation. Even if maybe there's some part of him that's attracted, but I don't think so. He seems like a decent person. She's way too innocent and childish that to be attracted to her. I don't think he would be. Shay just doesn't handle it well at all. She doesn't see that he's trying to protect her. She just, every opportunity, she pouts or complains about it. I really hated that. And then I guess what happens with her, it still feels a bit typical that, oh, okay, so I just found out she was sleeping with Tywin Lannister, and then he gets to choke her, and I didn't feel bad for her at all. There's been a few parts where I was like, kill him, just kill him. Like when he was with his dad, Tywin, with the crossbow, I was like, shoot him, because I've seen too many parts where they have a chance and then they don't. And I'm so glad he shot his dad, because that's the other thing. Like, it's nice to maybe have those last few words, or to talk, or to try to, when you've got the upper hand, to get them to say something, but it doesn't always work. They're not obliged to give in and say what you want to say. And you never know. Someone could sneak up behind you, something could happen, especially in a show like this. Just shoot him, kill him while you got the chance. Which brings me to one thing that was extremely disturbing. I thought I'd seen the most disturbing thing, but the show keeps outdoing itself. The part with that Oberyn, who says he's going to save, or he volunteers to be the fighter for Tyrion, which I gotta say, by the way, it's so funny that you can just say, oh, I want a trial by contest, or whatever it's called. Like, where's the logic with that? Like, what if you're a really great warrior? You could commit any crime and just say, well, I want trial by contest, and just fight someone. You win, and it's like, well, God decides that it's okay. I mean, I know it's kind of medieval times or whatever, but you want to believe in this kind of, that there is some kind of structure, there's some kind of, it's fantasy, it's high fantasy, it's kind of cool, interesting stuff. But if they have really dumb rules, like, it's kind of funny how Tywin hates gay people, or just is very uncomfortable with the concept of gayness. Anyway, and I just wonder about the hygiene and stuff. Like, you don't want to think about it. They are way too clean. All of these characters are way too well shaven. Like, maybe that they could do shaving, but just some of the things. Yeah, when Oberyn fights the mountain and he's doing all the twirling and flipping, I actually have to say, when he was doing all the twirling, it was cool, but it was like it was shot for MTV, like a music video. There were like 10 different shots, and it's like, I much prefer when you have a single shot showing things, or just cleverly chosen different angles, rather than just this kind of flip, this different angle constantly. It was completely unnecessary, and I notice it. I find it jarring, and not nearly as creative or interesting as a longer shot, like in Goodfellas by Scorsese or something like that. There was a shot that I really liked in the battle at the wall that was longer, and you sort of see this fighting over here, and it just seemed to be one continuous shot, and I just think, it seems to pan all the way across, so they either have a big set or lots of CGI to integrate it. Maybe there are a couple of cuts that I missed. It was really impressive. I really liked that. It seems to be that a few episodes that were really well directed. Last couple of episodes, I think, are really good. I'll get to that. But anyway, Oberyn's beating him and then saying, you killed I forget, you killed my nieces and nephews or children, whatever. Or I forget who it was exactly. You raped her, you killed her. You raped her, you killed her. Say it. You haven't said it yet. And then, he gets sort of knocked over and then grabbed and then punched in the head. And you can see like teeth come out, and then he's getting his eyes gouged. That was incredibly disturbing. And then when his skull gets crushed, and then his wife just screams in terror. That was brutal. I'm 31 years old. I don't think I was ready for that. Like, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, that kind of shock, I think I prefer a bit, because at least it's not just Oberyn was a new character, and to have with that kind of a fight, you want it to be a bit like, oh, this person's got the lead, this person's got the lead, but I think that's the scariest kind of thing, when things feel good, when there's a joviality or a positivity, and then something really, really bad, really disturbingly, violently horrible happens. So it's the same with the jousting in one of maybe the first season, and someone gets killed from that. That's incredibly disturbing. And of course the wedding with Robb Stark, and they're kind of happy, they're smiling, he's very romantic with his wife, or things seem to be going well. It turns out that girl that the other guy has to marry is actually quite attractive compared to the others, I think. And then what happens? It's brutal. So let's go to the wall and the north. I don't know what's going on up there with all the snow and ice. I'm so confused because I thought there was the White Walkers, or like this army of the dead, basically, these sort of snow zombies, I guess. They were approaching at the end of like season 2 or something like that, or season 3, and I don't know where they are. I don't know what happened. Like they don't. It's I think that other boy, the pudgy one, he killed one White Walker with obsidian, whatever they call it. Sort of shiny, like I don't know, whatever glassy, whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's obsidian, and like I haven't seen any other White Walkers, so I don't get what the big threat is. Meanwhile, the wildlings or wildlings or whatever, they've got their big 100,000 thing. I thought that the battle was epic at the wall, really really well done with the mammoth and the two giants, and it's very reminiscent of the Lord of the Rings, just because of the direct similarity of it has sort of big trolls or whatever and elephants, and it's they're approaching a big wall, and then it's very well done, very well done. I liked pretty much all of that. There was a part with Jon Snow fighting, I don't know who it was, but some other guy who was pretty big with the weird scars and he's bald. That was really exciting. I haven't seen a fight scene as exciting as that in a long time. I realized how much I like Jon Snow, the actor and the character. I really care about him. Although I think he makes some dumb decisions as well. Like when he has the chance to kill that woman and he can't. Then that causes more problems, and yeah, I don't know. And that woman, I didn't like her that much. I kind of did in a way. I don't mind that thing of where characters meet each other and at first they hate each other, but then they grow, their relationship grows. But I still felt like there was a weird tension, and I think it's well done. I do like it in the end where it's kind of like she's going to kill him, but she's cares about him and you don't even know, and then she gets hit by an arrow. Although it becomes also a bit convenient, the number of characters that get killed, it's just yeah, I forget what I was saying, but yeah, I guess everyone dies, and it's a useful thing to use in a story to kill a person at the right time. But it just in Game of Thrones, it feels like it just happens all the time, and it feels, I don't know, a bit convenient. Like it's just funny that she doesn't get killed before that, but then finally she gets killed right when she's in front of him, and it sort of blurs the line between, is this a realistic show or is this a very sort of fancy show that's just everything works out the way the author wants it to. If you know what I mean, it just feels like we're just, our heartstrings are being pulled and we're being manipulated. That's that sort of thing. But yeah, I found her a bit annoying earlier on when she keeps saying, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," and her accent's a bit annoying. Like, I don't mind accents, but I always feel like there's most places there's like an like upper class British, and then you got Cockney where they don't even know how to talk properly in it. And in America, you can have an American accent, or you can have a redneck who don't even know what's all that about. I ain't got a problem with that. Whatever. Same in Australia. I'm probably not as good at that. There's a lot of swearing, I think, in some cases with some people. But I don't like, when I was a kid, I remembered at school, like some kids just couldn't speak properly, but they wouldn't learn. They wouldn't try to improve. I used to say wabbit, right? Because I found a r sound, R, even though it's in my name, Christopher Reed. I would say Christopher Weed. That made more sense to me. But I learnt eventually. I was like, I understood the difference, and then I got better at it. But other people don't learn, and it's just, I feel like those kinds of accents often reflect this attitude of, why do I need to speak any differently? It just sort of bugs me a bit. Okay, yeah, I can't remember everything else with her, but I know there were things, maybe just because she kept talking and sort of taunting Jon Snow about various things, and just being annoying and just not being positive. Maybe that annoyed me. Let's go to some other things. Arya Stark, I really like her character, although it's the sort of thing where I feel like you don't need to show every step of it. It's like the Lord of the Rings, especially the Two Towers and the Return of the King with Sam and Frodo and Gollum, where there's just a constant bickering between them, and then they make up, and then they fight again, and then Frodo, do you remember the Shire? And it's got the da 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 na na na. It drags on. We don't need to see all of it. It's better to cut away from that and let us wonder, where are they? Are they still alive? I feel like that would be effective with Arya, at least to some degree, just to have her disappear from the show. and have us not know exactly what's going on. Have us hear whispers here and there that refer to her in one way or another, and have us wonder. And then have a character that's wearing a mask, this sort of fighter, come in, in season 4 or 5 or whenever, and then it turns out it's Arya. Like, how cool would that be? And then we get a bit more backstory. But we don't need to see every little thing that's happening to her. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it I like, but it still feels like, okay, you got the Robb Stark, the King of the North. He keeps talking about what are we going to do, and are we going to ally with them? Can we attack, or should I go back to Winterfell? And we're going to kill Theon because he's betrayed us. And then there's like, what was the point of him getting upset about that? He ended up dying anyway. It just feels like, what's the point of setting up tension if it just gets diffused, the characters die anyway, It'd be like if the Joker died halfway through The Dark Knight, or, the shark in Jaws just dies partway through the movie. Like, then where does the movie go from there? But yeah, meanwhile, Arya is getting captured by a group of people, and then she escapes, and then she gets captured by another group, and then escapes, and it just feels like that's happening with all the other characters. You've got Stannis is constantly planning what he's going to do, and then just talking about things. There's too much talking about stuff and not doing stuff. I do like the kind of friendship, I guess, that develops between Arya and the dog, or I think they call the hound, I should say, Le Limier. I'm used to the French words for it because I've got French subtitles. So a lot of these things I think of Le Limier, I have to think, the hound. That's what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I like him, but I like the actor. I think he's good, and the relationship I think is good. There is sort of a trust, and he's looking after her at least a bit. I don't know why she didn't kill him at the end though. Like when he's just sitting there, and he says, you know where the heart is. Come on, kill me, and she refuses to do it. She just stares at him and then walks away. Now maybe he deserved that. I guess the only difference is either putting him out of his misery or he dies. It takes a bit longer and he goes through more pain before dying. I don't get why she didn't just kill him. Just, he's looked after you that many times. I don't know. I didn't get it. I also didn't get why Brienne of Tarth and him, the Hound, had to fight. They're on the same team. They both want to look out for Arya, and I just thought I could understand what happened part of the way, where the Hound got annoyed at Brienne, but Brienne needed to just step back and say, look, I'm here to help. Like, rather than just saying, you have to do this, like, give Arya at least a bit of a choice. Because I liked the dialogue they had until they started fighting it. I thought it was a pretty brutal fight, but I really didn't feel like it was necessary. Like, why? They could have teamed up, or they could have just said, you know what, where are you planning on going? What are you planning on doing? And, well, maybe we can help each other, or maybe, give Arya a choice, and she might decide, okay, I'll go with Brienne of Tarth, or I want to stay with the Hound, or maybe they can team up. Maybe at least she can go with the Hound, and they can have a plan, and Brienne can then pass that information on somewhere else, or, I don't know. But instead, they just have to pointlessly fight. I mean, it's exciting to watch, but it just seemed unnecessary. Sansa's another character that I feel maybe her acting I don't think is great, but it's suitable for the role, I guess. She's just kind of innocent and young, but her character feels like she's not really going anywhere. She's just being held captive by the Lannisters, and then she finally escapes, but then she's with Baelish, and then it's kind of weird with the aunt. She has the most scary, freaky eyes I've ever seen, and like the way she like breastfeeds that boy. I think she's finished now. He's a little older. But yeah, what happens with her I thought was kind of cool. Like that there was a case where I actually predicted accurately what would happen, that he's going to push her in. He's going to say something like, yeah, I always loved one person, and it wasn't you, your sister, and then just pushes her. That was pretty epic. And then Sansa kind of saves him by lying. I don't know, I feel like this show popularizes lying, but that's the thing. I said earlier, I really like the struggle of power. I really find that interesting, but not just in terms of lying and manipulating to get power. That's why I don't find the Marjorie, she's attractive. I like all her low cut dresses, always exposing a bit of cleavage or whatever. But just the idea that she's just kind of trying to weasel her way in or whatever to become the queen successfully with Joffrey and presumably now with the other boy, I forget his name, Tommen or something. Like, it doesn't interest me as much, these kind of games. I really like honor. I like the idea of a good, strong character and then a clash between characters and a build up of forces in two places so then they can clash with each other. I don't mind some betrayals, but I think the show relies too much just completely on betrayals to the point that you don't trust anyone. That's where I feel like there's an absence of good relationships. An exception would be like, okay, another character that really grew was Jaime Lannister. I really like what's going on with him and Brienne. I thought that was very mature and interesting, although frustrating at times as well, because it feels like they get, I don't know, they'd make some progress and then they get captured and then try to escape and then captured. Or Jaime Lannister was a prisoner for like 2.5 seasons or something, and then getting his hand chopped off. I thought that was brutal. That was awful. But the kind of mutual respect or even love that develops between the two of them, I think is cool. And yeah, I really like Jaime and Tyrion. They seem to really have a strong caring relationship between them. I like that part. And I think the actor's really good for Jaime Lannister. Just another thing that came to mind in general, the visuals, I think are good overall for the show, but never like blowing me away. If you've seen a movie like Ran or maybe Kagemusha by Akira Kurosawa or certain other directors, who else? Maybe certain Disney movies or animated movies, Hayao Miyazaki movies. There are certain movies that just have shots or many shots that are really gorgeous, really good looking. Empire Strikes Back, I think, looks awesome. The Wizard of Oz, I don't know. Maybe even like Citizen Kane, I think its cinematography was considered very, very good or is very good. But yeah, I feel like Game of Thrones never quite reaches that level of like really gorgeous or great. Although I think season 4 has some more of that stuff. That there were some parts that looked really awesome, and I just thought I wish more of it was like this. I wish they had more shots like this because it just certain locations just look gorgeous, like the the landscape. I don't know how to describe it. You've got like water. I feel like you could just pause it and just someone could write a really great poem, just like just pages of like trying to describe or capture the beauty that you can see that just affects you. I don't know, it's almost healing, just I think to be in places like that where you're surrounded by nature. That kind of nature is just beautiful. And also some other dark parts with okay, this is the other problem with the show is the magic. I really like magic. I like that there's hints of it but it's what's going on? So the Scarlet Witch, she like had a baby who was like a weird shadowy thing who killed Renly Baratheon or whatever, and then it disappeared. Where is that shadowy guy? Is he gonna be in it again? There's a part where the White Walkers are like taking the babies, the male babies. There's a part where they take a baby and then they put their finger on it, and his eyes turn blue, and it feels like there's no follow up to that. Like, okay, fine, but like, what is that leading towards? What's the significance of that? Don't they already have a whole bunch of White Walkers? Does it make a difference now they got a little baby White Walker? Does it matter? Is that baby going to keep growing? I thought it's like once you turn into that mode, you just stay like that forever. If there's a horse with rotting flesh or just like half its flesh gone, or a human with half its flesh gone, like what? Like, time doesn't seem to affect them. It seems like I don't know. I don't know how it works. As I mentioned before with the dragons, there's 3 of them, but they're like a backdrop. They're just like a background. They don't do anything. They don't affect the story other than eating a few goats and a few children. And then, teary-eyed Daenerys has to lock them up in chains, which is so ironic because she's the breaker of chains, mother of dragons. Like, I don't know. I thought it would be a lot funnier if she went to a dragon and said, "Hey, did you eat someone?" And the dragon's like, kind of like a dog. It's just a dragon version of it. She's like, no eating kids. That's it. No supper for you. No dessert. I don't know. She's just got to get control of them. But I don't know. Maybe she has to chain them down. I don't really get it. It's like logic goes out of the window for a lot of people. Either it's a it's capable of being trained or it's not. And if it's not, then it's a beast and you need to lock it up or else it's going to eat more children. It's like, oh, do you want the children to be dead or not? It doesn't make sense. I didn't like what Daenerys did with her advisor either. She gets like a letter from like, I don't know, a few years ago that he was originally spying on her, and he wants to talk in private. And she should have just done that. Like, what's he gonna do all of a sudden now? He's gonna try to kill her or something. He could just be open and apologize. I could completely understand if she was annoyed at him, if she punished him in some way, or like just was annoyed for a solid like 3 days or a week or something, but then started to forgive him or recognize, well, okay, things have changed. He could apologize. He could try to make it up to her. But like, what was he meant to do? Even if he was originally sent for that reason, he's been proactive to try to help her since then, advise and help her make good decisions and just be there for her. I think it's just a stupid decision by her, and just maybe she's becoming obsessed with power, and like now I don't know if I like her so much, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with her. It's exciting to see if she's going to confront King's Landing and what's going to happen with Stannis and with the King of the North, Robb Stark. Oh no, wait, he's dead, so that part's just gone. That's out. While another actor I really like is I like Stannis Baratheon. I think he's cool, but his assistant, I really like that guy. I think his acting is really good. There's certain actors that just stand out as they're just interesting to watch, and just any scene they're in is more interesting. I just feel like I really care about his character. I'm not sure what it is. I just think certain actors have a certain quality that makes them much more interesting to watch. They bring more gravity to what they do, and you really feel a conviction in what they're doing. I think I'm going to wind it down soon. Just a few other things. In the north, I didn't really follow all the things that were going on. Like the wildlings, if they're just going around killing people, like just slaughtering people. It's funny how they have this army of 100,000 people, but you only ever see like 15 at a time. At most at some campfire or walking around in some area. With one or two exceptions. Obviously the big fight, you see more people. And it was really well done, I thought. I didn't really understand the architecture of it at first because I thought it was a huge wall, but then I also saw this smaller gate and I realized, okay, so there's a section down here and then the walls up here, and some of them were down here and some were up. But just there were some things about it that didn't make sense, like that it's sort of elevator that goes up and down and just some little boys controlling it, and like miraculously he never gets killed or attacked. None of the bad guys think to get on that thing to go up to say hello to the people at the top of the wall. They never do that. It's like this weird etiquette. And when that red-haired woman dies, Ygritte or whatever, and he's like holding her in his arms, and all this fighting's going. Jon Snow's holding her, and it's like, is there a rule that you can't attack someone while they're holding their beloved one? It just, common sense goes out the window. But it's a bit inconsistent with this show. And then there's that guy with the pudgy guy. I forget his name, but I don't know his name. He shoots like the bow and arrow, and then he gets shot by Ygritte. Just right through the neck, which is a great example of just sudden, unexpected violence that seems very realistic and very kind of scary and disturbing. And he's just trying to. I think it's very well done. Like the emotions surrounding it are really good. The pudgy guy, I'm just gonna keep calling him Mr. Pudgy or whatever. I don't know his character's name. He's sort of trying to say, "Oh, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. We'll get someone." But just the fact that then he sort of runs along, and then there's a guy running at him, and he manages to shoot him, and then just walk along. He's not that fast, but I don't know. I don't know. I just find it funny. It's just we're at the whim of the writers, and it's like if they want a certain character to survive, they will. So yeah, just to wrap up, third season I thought was dragging a bit. Fourth season had some real highlights. I'm very excited for the next fifth season and sixth season, and then I think eventually the seventh season's coming out. I don't know all the details. I'm not caught up yet. But I still can't help but feel like a lot of it is kind of like, oh, it's the next season's going to be the big one. It's like Daenerys already has these dragons, and I'm sure like nothing's going to happen. She's going to go to some new place and take over there and free the slaves, and then just have I don't know. I'm ready for something to actually happen. and ready for Stannis to actually do something. I mean, he went up to the north. I don't know what he was doing up there exactly, and I don't know if Jon Snow is now going to be allied with him, or if, and I guess Arya's trying to head up there. But it just sometimes feels like the show is always leading up to something and leading up, and then people just betray each other and kill each other, like, and there's shock, and it's like, I don't think that actually makes good drama by itself. It makes for surprise and entertainment to some degree, but I don't know about rewatching. Just another thing I remembered, I really like Charles Dance. I think he's a good actor as Tywin Lannister, and he's I guess kind of a villain, but you can understand him, and even Cersei as well. Like, I can see she's doing things that she believes in, but maybe she's a bit selfish or kind of malevolent in some ways. And Joffrey, obviously, I hated. I think he's so cruel, but it's nice that he died finally, that he got killed. But there's no satisfaction if he just kind of gets poisoned. Baelish, I really like the way he speaks out of the side of his mouth sometimes, and I don't know. I'm not going to try it. Varys is another. I really like his character. Just he seems so eloquent. Just picks the right thing to say. He and Tyrion both seem very smart and edgy. They often find the right clever thing to say. Okay, so I think I'll actually leave it there. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think if you actually watched it. Okay, bye.